Sister Aisha, you were saying that you're wondering what is on everyone's minds, and I just have some questions that came from the audience, so that gives us a little bit of insight. So I thought this question was very interesting. This person says, so first of all, I believe that Black Lives Matter is a Muslim issue, but a lot of people want to stick to more traditional Muslim movements, in quotes, like Free Palestine. How do I explain to people the intersection between the movements for Black lives and Muslim lives? And I would add on to this, how do you prevent people from like co-opting someone's struggle and saying that it's their own narrative, and remaining and amplifying the voices that need to be amplified, but also showing those intersections?
That's a very good question. Ooh, this can be like its own topic in and of itself. Very good question. I know that during the early years of the Black Lives Matter movement, there was a lot of young Muslims who were really getting involved. And there was a lot of pushback, both from their peer group and some of the elders, you know, saying that Black Lives Matter isn't really where we should be putting our attention. And I think that that's clearly flawed, because just looking at the American Muslim community, for example, 1/3 of that community is Black. So 1/3 of the community of the Muslim Ummah in the United States of America is Black. So how is 1/3 of issues impacting, how is 1/3 of your community impacted by an issue but it's not your issue? The Prophet ﷺ said, if one person in the Ummah is hurting, we are all hurting. So how is it that you are seeing Black and brown, and particularly Black bodies in this country being gunned down in cold blood with no justice served, and that does not tug at your core? Forget about 1/3 of the community being Muslim, right? Myself and Sister Aisha being a part of this community. Even on a human level, seeing people murdered in cold blood without justice, if that doesn't move you as a person and that doesn't make you get involved, you have a spiritual illness. You have a spiritual illness of racism. You yourself, by saying that Black Lives Matter is not a Muslim issue, you are complicit in violence against Black bodies. If you are not willing to be vocal when you are seeing people who are your brothers and sisters in faith and people who are your brothers and sisters in humanity being impacted directly and it doesn't hurt you, you yourself have spiritual illness that you need to deal with. So I tell people that straight up. If you don't think Black Lives Matter is a Muslim issue, that's on you, but you have bigger issues internally with your nafs, with your ego, because you yourself are anti-Black and you yourself look negatively upon your brothers and sisters in Islam. And that's my only answer.
So what was the question?
Orthodox Muslim movements and movements like Black Lives Matter?
Well, you know, language is everything. So one of the problems that we run into is labeling stuff and people wanting to take issues with labels, right? Black Lives Matter is one issue in our community that's really speaking about racism in the Black community or communities of color. That is, I think, speaking more broadly to oppression in general society, but with a specific focus on Black folks' lives and trying to emphasize that it matters. Of course, that's a Muslim issue. Palestine is just one issue. It's not just the Orthodox issue, but Palestine has some uniqueness in that Al-Aqsa has some specific meaning in the Islamic context. So I think you'll find Muslims globally kind of rallying around the issue of the status of Palestine and in support of the Palestinian people. And there is also another connection with apartheid in South Africa, with again a racist backdrop, you know, of how people of color are relegated to non-existence. So there's the interconnectedness. But more deeply than that is, you know, the history of racism in our society, this colonial settler situation that is the foundation of our own country. And of course, then we're looking at the Native Americans. We rarely, if ever, speak about them and include them in our conversation as well. So I think that the Muslim camp, the Islamic camp, is so broad that it actually mandates us to claim all issues of injustice wherever we see it in the world. Some of us will be called to various ideologies and issues within our community, and some will be more vocal and present on those issues. It does not mean that we are not concerned or willing to support those issues. But I think that division of labor is also very important. But keep in mind that if we harbor any negative stereotypes about people because they don't look like us, or dress like we do, or speak like we do, or even share our faith tradition, that somehow they don't matter, right? But only those issues matter that speak about our own history, our own culture, our own communities, those things. So we have a lot of internal work to do, but it begins with education. You know, I think as young people growing up, interacting with different people from different cultural backgrounds, especially in the Western context, that you're exposed to a lot. But I think ultimately the fitra speaks to us, and we have a pretty good sense of when we are being racist or classist or all of these negative labels that we can use to put on people to say that you don't matter, that we constantly strive to get rid of those, even those people who are oppressors, right? That somehow we find a place to negotiate interaction somehow with them in order to bring about some change. And again, this was the Prophet Muhammad's, peace be upon him. This is what he did. He tried to find ways to bring about reconciliation among people of various backgrounds, various positions, and so forth. And it doesn't mean that we're giving up our principled positions or stances, but it means that we are open and broad enough to know what our own bottom line is, and that by interacting with people who don't think like we do or who don't agree with us, that we can still hold our own line and engage at a broader level, inshallah.
I'm so sorry, invading your personal space. Thank you so much for both of those responses. I have like a stack of questions that unfortunately we won't be able to get to, so I apologize for those of you who submitted questions because we are running out of time, but we do have a few more minutes left. And I thought it would be nice to wrap up the session by each of you giving like a minute or 2 minutes to talk about advice to take away. So if everyone who's here takes something away from the session about creating movements, being a part of movements, educating themselves, what would it be? What are those like golden points that you just want people to remember to kind of close off the session? So I don't know which one.
I actually literally have a list, but it's really quick.
Yeah, sure.
I say, to start off, always challenge culture, always challenge what the status quo is, dispel rumors, and always advocate towards the truth. Take part in grassroots organizing in terms of racial and social justice issues. Always raise awareness around these issues. Doesn't matter what space that you're in. Become an ally to a group that is in a group that you're not a part of, whether that be the Latinx community or the Asian community or the Black community. Have uncomfortable conversations with friends and family. This means going back and talking to your parents about some of the biases that maybe you grew up with or that you heard in your community. Maybe you grew up in a community where terms like abd and slave are commonly referred to as Black people. Having those conversations at home, although they're very uncomfortable. Reaching out to your elected officials to air your grievances. At the end of the day, your elected officials work for you, you don't work for them. You put them in office, they need to answer your requests. Call out injustice when you see it. Don't be a bystander. Many times we see bullying in schools, we see people name calling, people being attacked, and we just stand by idly and we do nothing. Stay organized and mobilized, and don't wait every 4 years to get involved with social issues of the day, and always strive for solidarity work. Thank you.
Wow, some really great questions. Wow. You know, you're used to hearing people just sit up and talk to you, right? And I see, you know, some people yarning, turning their head, waiting for us to finish, or walk out and go someplace else, you know. And I know what that feels like and what it does to you, right? So you should know that there are many organizations already out there. I know that oftentimes we'll want to start our own thing, right? But I think at this point we should be also thinking about institution building, right? So that we have some solid foundations. And hopefully you'll be able to find an organization that speaks to integrity and powerful movement for positive change that speaks to your heart, right? To your passion. So just go seeking for that. And if you don't find that, then, you know, build a coalition with other like-minded people to do something else. But bring something different. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't duplicate efforts, right? One of the things that I see in our community is that as soon as we learn how to write a grant, we will create another organization, right? And then rather than working collaboratively, we become very competitive, right? So we want to start thinking now about how to work collaboratively. How do we work together to build power, right? That's very important. And I'm going to take you back to the arts now. You can be very powerful through the arts. You can say things through the art that no number of demonstrations, standing in front of the White House, tweeting about our current president, you know, but a single piece of art, whatever the genre, can go miles beyond anything that we can do otherwise. So I'm going to encourage you to look to your, what side of the brain is that? The right side of the brain or the left side of the brain? The right side of the brain. Go get your right side of the brain, you know, and bring it. You know, we need that. Also, we need some beauty in our lives. We're starved for beauty, you know. Our souls are yearning for beauty. So go out and create something, whatever that is, but create it from your heart and from your passion, and then give that back to the world. That's what all these great leaders did. You know, they just gave their souls out to the world. They rarely thought about themselves, if at all. But, this is what we need now. We need something to feed us, as we step out in the world and try to do this work, inshallah. And also pray for those of us who have decided to stand on the fault line. Everybody doesn't have to be on the fault line, So those of us who are or have been, support those people and pray for them and their safety and for their families, inshallah. So that's my small advice to you, but I'll tell you, I need you, we need some beauty in our lives, as we work every day and move forward to bring about a more perfect union and a more beautiful world for our children to grow up in, inshallah. And may Allah bless you in everything that you do, and as we move forward, inshallah.
I just want to thank Sisters Aisha and Asha for their beautiful words, the advice, the insight, and the inspiration that they've given us. And I would also like everyone to give them another round of applause. And that also ends our session.